Good afternoon. My name is Carol Endeavor, and I'm the interim dean of the College of Arts and Science here at Vanderbilt this year, and I'm also a faculty member in the English department. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2008 Harry C. Howard Jr. Lecture. This lectureship was generously endowed by Mr. and Mrs. Thomas E. Nash Jr. and Mr. and Mrs. George D. Renfro, all of Asheville, North Carolina, to honor their friend and attorney Harry C. Howard Jr. A 1951 graduate of Vanderbilt, Mr. Howard is an alumnus of the Baylor School and the Emory University School of Law, and he practiced law with King and Spalding from 1956 to 1992. Mr. Howard has continued to support the annual Howard Lecture since its initial endowment, but unfortunately we're bereft of his company today. He recently underwent eye surgery, and though he's recovering well, he regrets that he can't be with us. But Mr. Blount, Mr. Howard asked us specifically to remember him to you. As always, I want to thank Mona Frederick, Professor Ed Freeman, and the staff of the Robert Penn Warren Center for the Humanities for organizing this wonderful event. And I'd like to mention as well the delightful company of Senator Lamar Alexander and his wife Honey, who are with us today. Senator Alexander is an alumnus of Vanderbilt, and we're proud to count him as one of our own. And he's a true champion for higher education on Capitol Hill, and we've never needed it as much as we need it now. So thank you, Senator. Thanks for coming today. Thank all of you for joining us, and let me turn the mic over to Ed Freeman.
Good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to join Dean Carol Endeavor in welcoming you to the 2008 Harry Howard Jr. Lecture, sponsored by the Robert Penn Warren Center for the Humanities. We are most grateful to the donors for their generosity, and we regret that Mr. Howard is unable to be here today. In addition to presenting the 14th lecture in this distinguished series, we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Warren Center, and we would like to acknowledge the 20 years of service of the Center's Executive Director, Ms. Mona Frederick, and the support of Dean Dever, Provost Richard McCarty, and Chancellor Nicholas Zeppos. We're delighted to have with us today Mr. Roy Blount Jr., and the question arises, how does one introduce an eminent writer and humorist who's been compared with Mark Twain? By not even trying to be funny, I would think. Fortunately, I'm helped in this introductory task by the self-promotional bio in third person available on Mr. Blount's website. Roy Blount Jr. grew up in Georgia and graduated magna cum laude from Vanderbilt, where he was elected to Phi Beta Kappa and served as editor of The Hustler, succeeding Lamar Alexander in that position. And he received an MA from Harvard. He later served in the U.S. Army and as a writer and editor for Sports Illustrated. His contributions to newspapers, magazines, and anthologies are too numerous to mention. He's the author of 21 books, from About 3 Bricks Shy of a Load and Crackers to the novel First Hubby, to the more recent Feet on the Street, Rambles Around New Orleans, Long Time Leaving, Dispatches from Up South, and Alphabet Juice, published this month and subtitled The Energies, Gists, and Spirits of Letters, Words, and Combinations Thereof, Their Roots, Bones, Innards, Piths, Pips, and Secret Parts, Tinctures, Tonics, and Essences, with examples of their usage, foul and savory. Ian Fraser calls Alphabet Juice a book that's as much fun to read backwards as forwards, and a one-of-a-kind work of literature that will help you write better. It's like the Elements of Style, only updated and hilarious. I'm sure that there are some negative reviews of Mr. Blount's works out there, but I couldn't find a single one, even going off of his website. What I did find were comments such as a work of art, a comic masterpiece, prodigious talent, wonderfully insightful, superbly crafted, and suaviloquent. He moves from topic to topic and from genre to genre with remarkable skill. The New York Times Book Review, for example, calls his biography of Robert E. Lee for the Penguin Live series witty, lively, and wholly fascinating. The Washington Post Book World notes poetically, you'd be pulling off a major stunt to hold your laughter while reading Roy Blount. I can add that Roy Blount Jr. is a playwright, a screenwriter, a lyricist, an actor, a singer, a panelist on National Public Radio's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, a frequent guest on television talk and news shows, and president of the Authors Guild. The list goes on, but I won't, so that we can welcome this most exemplary wordsmith and Southern Renaissance man, Mr. Roy Blount, Jr., home to Vanderbilt. His talk is titled, "Through is thoroughly throughsome, go is wide open, and wince makes you wince," on the non-arbitrariness of words. Mr. Blount. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for all of you turning out here. Maybe I should, well, it's nice to be in a library. I like being speaking in libraries, because you're not supposed to speak in libraries, for one thing. At least when I was growing up, they told me I should not speak about this level in a library. So it's nice to speak loudly in a library. I was in a library in Clarksdale, Mississippi one time, and I went up to the desk, the information desk, to find out something about, it was a blues museum upstairs or something. And I was waiting to talk to the lady behind the information desk, and in front of me were an elderly white man, an expression I feel more and more entitled to use, and a young black woman. And the elderly white man was saying to the lady behind the desk, he was saying, "I just felt so much like having a piece of pie." And I said to myself, "Floyd, now, you know where to get a piece of pie around lunchtime, because Miss Boyd has extremely fine pie." And the lady behind the desk said, "Yeah, that's right, Miss Boyd does. She said she cooks a really nice pie." And the man said, "But then I said to myself, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Where am I going to get a piece of pie this time of day?" And the lady said, "That's right, this time of day. I don't know. But I just said to myself, I'll go down to the library and ask them where I can get a piece of pie." And the lady said, "Yeah, this time of day." "Hello?" She called back to the, back in the stacks, and the faint voice said, "Uh-huh." She said, "You know where Mr. Pettibone can get a piece of pie?" And the faint voice came back and said, "You mean this time of day?" And at that point, the young black woman stepped forward and said, "Excuse me, but do you have anything about the Army? Because I got to get out of this damn town." I never feel that way about Nashville. I want you to know that. I guess we first better address my title, the title of my remarks tonight, this evening, this afternoon. Through is a thoroughly throughsome word. That's kind of a showy way of putting the fact that a lot of people don't like to pay attention to what goes on inside their mouths. I can understand that. Robert Benchley once referred to the tongue as that awful-looking thing just right back of your teeth. But it's interesting to follow when you get into words, it's interesting to sort of keep track of what goes on in your mouth when you use a word. The word through starts out, you know what a shotgun house is. If you shoot a shotgun all the way through it, it will go through every room, go straight through. Through is sort of like a shotgun house with the back door closed, because you start out in the front of your mouth, through. It just goes smoothly through your mouth to the back of your mouth, and then a little puff of smoke comes back out. Then there's the word go. You notice that nobody, and maybe originally when people were lining people up to race, they would say, "On your mark, get go, set." But it didn't work. I don't know, if you said that, everybody would just sort of topple over on their nose, I think. You can't. But go is a wide open word. On your mark, get set, go, people jump. Now, that makes you wonder, I guess, about get up and whoa. Get up ends in a P, which is a stop letter. Get up. And whoa ends in an O sound. So why do we do the one to to start a horse and the other to stop one. Well, if you think about it, get up is not something, I mean, if you've got a wonderful horse and you have full confidence in that horse and you're off on an adventure and you know you're on the side of the right, you say, "Hi-yo, Silver, away!" That's a good word to start out on. But if you just got a regular horse, you may want to just say, "Get up," in a sort of tentative way. Let's get into a gait here. Let's get up. Whereas whoa, and whoa is not a wide open word. Whoa, if you listen to it and think about how it goes through your mouth, is like whoa. You know, it ought to really be spelled W-O-A-H hyphen H hyphen H. There's a sort of sympathetic whinny at the end, which brings a horse to a stop. And then there's cringe, wince. No, wince, I have in the title of these remarks. The word wince makes you wince. The word cringe makes you wince harder than that. And flinch is right in there somewhere. I bring all that up because I want to quote this accurately. There's a tenet of linguistics, the science of linguistics, which is that the relationship between a word and its meaning is arbitrary. Marshall McLuhan said that the alphabet alienates people from their bodies because the alphabet is semantically meaningless letters which are made to correspond to semantically meaningless sounds. The Christine Kennelly in a book called The First Word says a word is an arbitrary association between sound and meaning. There's nothing in the sound of a word that tells you what it means or what it does. You must learn this as a child. Well, I can see the advantage of that too if you're trying to make linguistics a science. I mean, your doctor doesn't want to know whose lung they're cutting on necessarily. You want to focus down on the abstracts of how a lung works. But on the other hand, you want to focus down on the actual tissue. And I've always been interested in the actual tissues of words. They say you should learn as a child, just sort of by rote, that this word means this and so on and so forth. But I've always felt that it was much more organic than that. Steven Pinker, as evidence that words are arbitrarily related to their meaning, cites pig noise. He says in Russia, pigs go, well, it starts out with, in English, pigs go oink. In Norwegian, pigs go niff, niff. And in Russian, he says, pigs go, let's see how he spells it. In Russian, pigs go C-H-R-J-O. To me, that's cheating. I don't know what C-H-R-J-O sounds like in Russian. They're not Russian letters. Seems to me he's slipping something past us there. So I Googled Russian pigs go. You can try this. There's almost everything in the world on Google. Russian pigs go, and I actually found somebody who knew how Russian pigs go. I don't know why he had entered it on the internet, but I'm glad he did, because he said in Russian, pigs go H-R-O-O, H-R-O-O. Note that these are rolled R's, and the H is more of an HK sound, like when you try to build a loogie. Don't try, he said, to pronounce the K, just phlegm up the H. To me, that clarifies the matter considerably. It sounds to me like a pig if it's something like that. I don't want to get too graphic here. I've already, no wonder linguistics doesn't want to get into these things because they're nasty. But it's necessary if you want to get into the actual nature of words. And pigs make lots of different noises, after all. Pigs can do a lot of things. There's a great video, home movies of Cowboy Jack Clement, which has Johnny Cash in a pig nose. He's just a simple pig nose strapped on with a rubber band, and he's saying, Ricky Dinkins, I don't know who Ricky Dinkins is, but he says, Ricky Dinkins used to say that a pig can see the wind. And at that, Johnny Cash has a pig nose on, and he goes, I should have brought a pig nose, but it's just very striking. And so we don't know what a pig means when he makes these noises, but we've made all sorts of efforts to spell pig noise accurately, and I don't want those efforts to be swept away by a linguistician. Another example that Steven Pinker cites as proof that the relationship between a word and its meaning is arbitrary is the word meconium. He maintains, to me this sounds like one of those, tendentious anecdotes people make up to prove a point. But he claimed like a welfare lady getting out of a limousine in an evening gown to collect her welfare check sort of anecdote. This is an anecdote about a woman who, as she was giving birth, decided to name her child Meconium, her daughter, Meconium. And Pinker, in a sort of condescending way, says this just shows that words don't connect to their meaning because meconium is fetal excrement. It's apparently a kind of, I'm sorry to get into all these things, but Steven Pinker started it. Meconium is apparently this sort of green fecal fluid that comes out along with the baby, and that does seem like a crazy thing to name your daughter. But I've looked at that a little bit, and one thing is that I also Googled this, in the 1990 census, of the 1,000 most common girls' names, only one ended in an M. That was Miriam, and that was like 365th. So it seems to me that this particular mother, if she actually did exist, was a bad example in this. I mean, if she had named her baby Camphophonique or Salmonella or something that sounded like a girl name, then I would believe it. But then I would say, well, that sounds sort of like a girl's name to me. I don't think that's so arbitrary. And also, meconium doesn't sound like what it is. I mean, it comes from the Greek, I think, and it's a literary, scholarly, abstract term for green, first poop. If a woman had named her daughter fetal poop, then and didn't know what it meant, just thought, oh, my little girl looks like fetal poop, then he would have had a point. But meconium seems like sort of respectable to me. Might be a good middle name for a girl. I don't think it's a first name. So it seems to me that linguistics has to sort of dismiss the virtues and the juices of words themselves in order to get on with statements such as these. Noam Chomsky says that the correct study of linguistics is to establish that there is a universal human grammar that is hardwired into us before we're born, and that we finally move into it. And this sort of theory results in sentences such as this. An English sentence can be described as, quote, S goes to NP VP, meaning that a sentence, S, consists of a noun phrase, NP, and a verb phrase, VP. And then NP goes to det N, means that a noun phrase, and so on. That's interesting to me, but, I can see that might be interesting to somebody, but there's an old expression that I feel like a hog looking at a wristwatch. When I read stuff like that, that's how I feel. And you know that a hog doesn't look at a wristwatch very long. He's got other things to do. And I think it's important because I was reading, there's an excellent suspense novelist, whose name I just forgot. But at any rate, he was being interviewed in the New York Times, and he said that he wrote translator's prose. He liked to write as if it had been translated from some other language. And he's a highly regarded writer. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. But that seems awful to me. I mean, if you take all the local color, it's sort of like there's a man named, I do have his name, Daniel Fletcher in the Department of Poultry Science at the University of Georgia, who found a way to take the dark out of dark meat of chicken. Why he thought anybody wanted him to, I don't know. But he puts dark meat of chicken in a centrifuge. Oh, I never did turn on my microphone. Is everybody hearing this? Yeah, all right. He puts it in a centrifuge, and whips it all around and turns it into a kind of slurry, and all the flavor goes out, I guess, and then you can, however, you can freeze it in little shapes, sort of like drumsticks, you know, and sell it as white meat of chicken. Well, you wouldn't be drumsticks. I guess it'd be shapes like, well, yeah, white drumsticks. Why not? Little, or chicken patties, chicken fingers, something. But then, so if you take it home, frozen, and cook it right away, it sort of seems like chicken, I guess. But if you leave it out on the counter overnight, it will just melt. And it seems to me that it would only be justice if Mr. Fletcher woke up one morning and somebody had fixed it so that the first two things that happened to him were to put his left foot and then his right foot in his slippers, and they were filled with melted chicken. I just don't think chicken ought to be abstracted that way. And I also don't think money ought to be abstracted the way it has been. It seems to me that's what has happened in recent months, is that investments got so abstract and distantly derived from anything physical that it just sort of drifted all away, a whole lot of it. And I don't want to see that happen to language. So there's Christine Kennedy says that you have to learn as a child, that there are certain words that go with certain meanings and you just have to memorize them, I guess. So I thought I would go back over how I learned words as I was growing up. First of all, I was not breastfed. I don't remember this, but I've been told this, and I may well be overcompensating for not having been breastfed, because I like to eat and drink a great deal. And to me, words are oral things. Because instead of breastfeeding me, my mother taught me how to read at an early age, not that early, but before I went off to school, and she taught me by reading to me Uncle Remus stories. Now, we know that Uncle Remus stories have certain sociological issues these days, or have for quite a while. But the stories themselves, because there's this insufferable little boy who's being condescending toward Uncle Remus, little white boy. But the stories themselves are, derived from Africa, and they're great stories, and they're told in dialect. Now, dialect is another thing that's unfashionable these days, but I love good dialect. Flannery O'Connor or Joel Chandler Harris, who wrote the Uncle Remus stories, figured out how to spell things that weren't in the dictionary, like by and by. Instead of by and by, it was by and by, B-I-M-E-B-Y, by and by. And I just love that, the notion that you could spell stuff differently from the official versions and capture the way the words actually sound when they come out of people's mouths. That was one influence on me. Which sort of bears on names. I was named after my father. I'm a junior. I'm honored to be doing a junior lecture, financed by a junior. Lamar's a junior, Vereen's a junior. Will, are you a junior? No. Most of my friends are juniors. It's incredible. Someday I'll come and give you a lecture on juniorhood. I'm the only person in the world. David, are you a junior? No. Well, I'm pushing my luck here. But I was a junior, and that sort of made me conscious of my name. In fact, I have the same name as my father. What happens as a junior is that when you're in your vulnerable teenage years, the phone will ring at home and you'll answer it, and someone will say, "Roy?" And you'll say, "Uh-huh," in a squeaky sort of voice, and they say, "Big Roy or Little Roy?" And you have to say, "Little Roy." And you don't want to say Little Roy. Now, when Richard Cheney was a child, he was apparently asked to say, "Are you Big Dick or Little Dick?" And, the rest is history. So that made me aware of my name. Also, my name, I was also very interested in pronunciation, because my name is spelled unphonetically. My mother taught me to read phonetically, sound out the words, which is complicated. In English, it's not all that programmatic, certainly. The word women, for instance, is spelled not with an I. You would think it would be spelled W-I-M-M-E-N. It's spelled with an O. And the reason that, the reason it is spelled with an O is that it was originally spelled originally it was W-I-F-M-E-N, which meant whiff man. The man meant just a person, and a whiff was the female wifely element. But then you couldn't say whiffman very well, so people dropped the F, and they were saying women, but they spelled it W-I-M-E-N, but scribes who were writing all this, we didn't have, of course, typing and computers back then. The only way words were recorded were by scribes who had to use actual pens, and they tended to do things in little minims, little straight marks. So when you wrote W-I-M in a row, you had just about 6 little marks. You look at a W and an M, they're just these little marks. And if you did it in a hurry, and they also crammed everything together, so they changed the I to an O just so it would keep the W from the M. My mother didn't teach me all that, but she taught me that it wasn't going to be consistent, the pronunciation of English, but you could sort of go with it and work with it and sound words out. Unfortunately, my own name could not be sounded out because it's pronounced Blount. I mean, it's spelled Blount, but it's pronounced Blount. That's especially awkward when the word pronounce gets worked in there, because you ought to pronounce, if by the logic of my name, you ought to pronounce, which is all too awkward. So I was always conscious of my name. Also, I used to argue with people about words a lot. I argued with my own parents about the word Roy, for instance, my first name. I maintained that Roy was a 2-syllable word. Why it was so important to me, or why it was so important to my mother to deny that it was a 2-syllable word, I don't know. But I would get in arguments with him. Roy, I would say, Roy, it's a 2-syllable word. And she would say, no, son, it's not. It's just not a 2-syllable word. And then I finally looked it up, and it's not a 2-syllable word, but it ought to be a 2-syllable word. The way I pronounced it back then, it's a diphthong is what it is, so it's two vowel sounds together. But I was very adamant about words. I also made some of my letters backwards. My first grade teacher, Miss Connie, thought I was doing it on purpose, but I wasn't. I thought it was the word S, the letter S, for instance, it seems to me, ought not to start over here and come back like this. You know, if you're moving right along left to right, you write from left to right, you should make your S from left to right. I finally gave up on that too, but sometimes I wonder whether I was right. So I was always very conscious of words and letters. And then I went to high school and worked on the school paper. I had expected to be a 3-sport immortal, but gradually I died off in every sport and realized I had to do something else. So I had a 10th grade English teacher who said, why don't you be a writer? And I said, oh, all right, I'll be a writer. And she gave me a big pile of New Yorker magazines to read, and I started reading, and I thought everybody in New York evidently knew all this stuff. And I thought, well, I better learn all this stuff too if I'm going to ever get out of Decatur here. So I would do, which is different, I think, now from young people. I think young people now, one of my books was reviewed on the Amazon, by someone, a young person who said, in effect, the title was Incomprehensible. And she said, I'm 20 years old. Why should I have to get all these references from a 75-year-old humorist? Well, I'm not 75 years old anyway, but I always thought if somebody wrote it, I was supposed to figure out what it was. But now I guess kids have an entitlement and they don't feel that way. But so I always had this pressure to try to figure everything out. That pushed me along. Then I came to Vanderbilt here. And Vanderbilt was a revelation. I read Brooks and Warren, which gets into poetry. I always thought poetry was something sort of la-di-da. But it's, I found out that poetry is just sort of the tightest and most forceful use of language. You have to know the sounds of words, and the sounds of words work. More and more, I think poetry is not even very sonic. More and more people are writing to be translated. Maybe it's for the global market. I don't know, but you don't have anybody writing like Yeats anymore, with all these great thumping, people slouching toward Bethlehem to be born. People used to, politicians used to, get out and really shuck down the corn. Now everybody's on TV. So I always, certainly it felt intellectually respectable to have a lot of sound in your words. And then my teacher, Freeman Bell, they were all the people who talked about symbols all the time, symbolism. I once was sitting with Terry Bradshaw when he was the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Freeman was there, another English teacher friend of mine. I was writing a book about the Steelers. We were in the locker room, and Terry Bradshaw said, "What do y'all teach to Brain and Gerald?" And they said, "Oh, English." They were sort of, English literature. And he said, "Oh, God, I hated that," he said. "All this stuff about symbols, that table means something and that chair means something. I hated that. I could be happy just welding," he said. I don't know where that came from, but it seemed interesting. But at any rate, Vereen once gave a lecture about organic symbolism, in which there was some critic had written that the pump, as I recall, a water pump out in the yard in somebody's house in a story by James Joyce represented Catholicism, something like that. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense. And then Vereen went on to say that, in fact, the interesting kinds of symbolism, of symbols, were organic symbols, which, meant something without just being, this means that, and you have to know what it means. It's like the train that ran over Anna Karenina. You can feel the symbolism of all the forces bearing down on her like a train. And they say always, whenever there's a tornado goes through a town, they say it's like a freight train came through. And one time, my friend Greg Janes went down to cover a freight train having gone through a town because it went off the track. And everybody said, "It came through here like a tornado." Good to know, sort of. But at any rate, that helped me out a lot to know that you didn't have to have some kind of abstruse knowledge to figure out a poem. You just felt it and went with it, and the symbolism had to do with the sound and the force and the activity of a poem. Then I went off to graduate school at Harvard, where I found out I was Southern. It was quite a revelation. I was talking about this just recently, somebody in New York, and I said, "Yeah, I was in graduate school and I liked it and it was okay, but I just felt like I ought to get out into writing about the world more." And there was too much about footnotes, I said. And the guy said, "And you had not been taught that." I said, "No, I knew how to do footnotes. That wasn't the point. We do footnotes into the South. I just didn't like doing footnotes. I can do a footnote right here for you. Show me something about a footnote right here." So I ran into a lot of that, and I found out that I had a Southern accent, but I was determined not to. People today come up to me and say, "I see you haven't lost the accent." And I say, nobody has tried to take it away from me yet. I just don't see any point in losing the accent. And then get reviews where they say, pardon me mentioning this, but they will say something like, his Georgia drawl, slow Georgia drawl on the radio belies the fact that he actually knows a few things about words, And I think, I know a lot of Southern people who drawl, who know things about words. But, nobody seems to feel that it's inappropriate to say things like that about Southerners. So I learned that, and it made me all the more determined to hold on to the juices of the alphabet. Because I think, and then I went off after graduate school, then I went into journalism and sports writing. And sports writing is great because, when you talk to somebody on the plane and you say, "What do you do?" I don't ever ask anybody what they do anymore, but I used to be friendly on the plane, and I would say, because now if you ask somebody, you're going like this, "Oh, so what do you do for a living?" That's my, everybody's so compressed on planes now. I just hate it. But in the old days, there was more room, and you might say, "Well, so what do you do for a living?" And if the person worked for a corporation, he would say, "Well, I work for EPCO and interfaced with the SIPCOM over there, and you have no idea what he does, and I don't think he knows what he does." But if you ask an athlete what they do, they'd say, "Well, I'm a defensive end, of course, so I run after people, try to knock them down, and I'll chase them around, and I've got this finger. You see this finger here? I once caught that finger in Fran Tarkenton's shoulder pad, and he carried me along for I don't know, 5 or 6 yards before I got him. I got him down with my finger, but now You see what the finger will do now? It'll just swivel all the way around. So what I'm saying is that athletes live in a physical world, and it makes it fun to write about them. And I don't want language to get out of the physical world too far. It may be that electronic media that is to say the electronic media that carry sound, like radio and TV and movies, have just taken over the whole sound thing and leaving abstract, dry, uninflected language to writers. I think that's awful. I think that the great challenge of writing for me is to capture, one of the great challenges is to capture the sound of things on the page, you know. Sound that animals make, and the sound of pigs, for instance. Sound that, and the sounds that people make when they talk. And then so I wrote this book, Alphabet Juice, which is lots of notes, based on a whole lot of notes I've been making over the years about words and how they ought to be used and how they are used. And words, for instance, like ain't. My daddy always said ain't, you know, I mean, he didn't always say ain't. He would say ain't when he had a reason to say ain't. Like, you know, they want me to go, and I guess I really ought to go, but I ain't going to go. You know, he didn't, other times he might say, I'm not going to go to that thing. But when he really wasn't going to go, he would say, I'd say, I ain't going to go. And in fact, if you look into the word ain't, it was standard usage back in the 18th century. It was only when the prissy 19th century came along that ain't was disapproved of. And in fact, ain't, like the word y'all, it serves a purpose in the English language. It's the only contraction of am not. Therefore, you don't have to say, Fats Waller didn't have to say, amn't misbehaving. And if you think back all sorts of song titles, you need the word ain't, you know. It isn't me, babe, is just sort of snotty, isn't it? But, and even isn't she sweet sounds kind of snotty too, to me, I don't know, but ain't she sweet sounds awful good. So you need the word ain't, and it used to be a respectable word, and it sounds like something, you know, it's got a tang to it. So I don't think there's anything arbitrary about the word ain't. Well, of course, there's some things arbitrary about it, but it's not, but to say that dismiss it as arbitrary seems to me to deny the evidence of the census. But linguistics will allow that there are onomatopoeic words. Onomatopoeia may well be the only rhetorical term you recall from studying it in English or wherever you might have studied it. And linguistics will allow for the fact that there are words like snap, crackle, and pop that, you know, sound like what they mean. They are the sound. I once heard the poet David Wagoner talk about language, and he said the word roar was unquestionably a word that went back before words. Roar is what it is. So there's an allowance for that sort of thing. One problem with that is that onomatopoeia is not an onomatopoeic word. It doesn't sound like what it means. But so I tried to come up with a different word for it, and I think the word sonicky works a little better. It's got a K in it. I love Ks. The shoes, Keds, you know, shoes, Keds, those tennis shoes, that was originally Peds. They were going to call them Peds for, you know, Latin for foot. But somebody else already had Peds. So they said, well, K is the hardest sound in the language. Let's just make it Keds. So they did, and so there we have kids. I don't know why soft shoes should have a hard letter, but it catches your attention. You know, the sound K, like that, is either a way to make a horse get up, or it's a sort of vocal wink, isn't it? It's sort of notifying someone who appeals to you that you would like to go talk to her. So there's something intrinsically valuable about the letter K and the letter. How did I get started talking about K? Anyway, the word okay. Okay, so you have that. Oh, okay, I know what I was going to say. So sonicky seems to me a much better word. It's got a K in it, and so it captures a little sound on its own. But so I was reading along about the word urinary. There again, I hate to bring this up, but it's such a good example that I'm going to. It's, what I was reading was that urinare was the formal, academic, educated term in Latin for to urinate, but that the street term, the vernacular term, was pissare, and that was obviously more echoic, is a term the writer used, that the word pissary is more echoic. In other words, sonicky, I would say. And I thought, yeah, that's right, exactly. When it, you know, when the people speak, they get it right. They try to capture the sound of things. But then I started thinking that, pardon the expression, piss is not onomatopoeic in any sense, unless you do it onto a hot rock. It doesn't sound like urination at all, but it does have a certain quality to it that seems appropriate, which is the letter P is a contained, tight, you know, you start out with a constraint on P, and then you let it go in ISS, piss, and it flows out. It's sip backwards, if you think about it. And I think that's an important aspect of soniciness, is not that words sound like what they mean necessarily, but they somehow kinesthetically recreate or evoke the meaning of the word. There are lots and lots and lots of words like that, like words like rickety and queasy and nausea and the world wobbly. I don't know, you know, everybody can think of a million words like that. I don't think that's arbitrary. I think that words gradually evolve into things that sound like, anyway, the best words evolve into things that either sound like what they mean to some extent or just sort of kinesthetically capture the action of what they mean. So I go into a lot of detail about that in my book. And I don't think that linguisticians will be too much bothered by it. We work a different side of the street, but every now and then I sort of hope Steven Pinker will call me up and say, you know what, you nailed me on pig noise, but how about fish noise? And I'll say, fish don't make noise. He said, all right, well, but the croakers do. And I said, well, croak, that's a good word. Well, that's sonicky. What's wrong with the word croak? He said, all right, it does. I could just talk him down on any animal that makes a noise. But he probably doesn't have time to deal with me. So I wrote this book. I acknowledge that there are lots of words that don't sound like onomatopoeia, like the word tmesis. You know the word tmesis. Tmesis means something like guarandam to you, or, Ned Flanders next door to The Simpsons is always saying things like, well diddly alcum. And then there's abso-bloomin'-lutely, things like that. That's tmesis. That's putting a word or a nonsense syllable in the middle of a word to add intensity. But then you look at the word tmesis, it's spelled T-M-E-S-I-S. That's almost opposite of what it ought to be. I mean, it doesn't have enough crammed into the middle of it. It ought to be tweenemesis or something like that, or timididam-mesis or something. And that's because a lot of work, I was down on classical Greek for a long time because, so many words like that that come down from Greek don't sound like they ought to sound. But then there's a dialogue of Plato in which, Cratylus, in which Socrates, they're talking about language, and Socrates says, for instance, that rho, the letter rho, R-H-O, is a word of movement, a letter of movement, that words with rho in them tend to be about movement, and that makes sense to me. If you've ever seen a kid playing with a car on the floor, he's doing R. And pirates, the pirates move around a lot, and they say R. Spanish refer to the letter R as the dog letter because it's R. on the other hand, and Socrates goes on to say other things about narrow letters, narrow sound, like the short I sound. In fact, the word sphincter is a tight word, and there's that ink in there, and it comes from the word the sphinx. The sphinx was built to represent a monster which strangled people, and therefore it's called the sphinx, and the sphincter comes from that. Tell me that's arbitrary, if you will. So I've traced lots of words back like that, and back sometimes to their Proto IndoEuropean roots. I don't know, there's nothing I can say to adequately express my appreciation of Proto IndoEuropean roots. One thing, PIE spells pie, which to me adds to the flavor of Proto IndoEuropean roots. But it's a fascinating story. Back in the 18th century, the 1780s, Sir William Jones, a judge, a British judge in India, noticed that the roots of Sanskrit, Greek, and Latin had so many words that were similar that they must have come from a previous language. All of them come from a mother language. And yet there was no trace of that language. It not only was a dead language, there was no, it had never been recorded. There were no artifacts from that culture. So linguists have since then established that there was such a culture and such a language, and have traced, and 1/3 of the world's peoples now speak languages that were born from that ancient language. We don't know where the people lived. There are some clues given by the fact that there are several different words in Proto-Indo-European for river, but none for sand, for instance, and so they probably weren't desert people. But it's fascinating that you can just find this culture that evidently existed just by reading back from our language and from from English, from our language and from French and from Spanish and from Italian and from lots of other languages, Russian. And in the back of the American Heritage Dictionary, there is a whole section of Proto-Indo-European roots. You can trace, here's an example. If you look up the word, where is it? Look up the word fang, for instance. Fang's a good word. It will say in the American Heritage Dictionary that it comes from the Proto-Indo-European root pag, P-A-G. And then you go back to pag in the back, and you find pag there sort of holding its own in this huge crowd of just roars and grumbles. Roots like fub and wag and gruff, and it's like you can just see English groaning to be born back there. It's a wonderful place to go. And so you go back to pag, and you get fang. From pag have grown fang, newfangled, what's that? Anyway, pact, peace, the word peace, pact, peel, pole, pagan, peasant, propagate, pectin, pace, impinge, and pageant, all from that one little clog of potential language. So that to me adds to the inherent value of words, that when you use a word, you can feel the reverberations not only in your own mouth, but back through the ages. And I just think this is worth pursuing, because, as I say, if you can find inherent value in anything anymore, it's worth looking for it and noticing it. I've also got in this book lots of anecdotes about using words. For instance, I went to Pennsylvania, way out in the middle of Pennsylvania somewhere, to make a speech one time, and I was picked up by a driver who was driving me along through the countryside and said, we're passing very near to Gettysburg. And I thought, I don't think we're going through near Gettysburg. And he said, we complained today, but at Gettysburg, they were out there in the snow all winter with no shoes. They just had rags wrapped around their feet. And I thought, he's talking about Valley Fords. That's what he means. So I said, oh, yeah, right. And then we were driving along, and there was a sign in somebody's yard that said, fine pies for sale. And I said, oh, they sell pies out of people's houses here? And he said, oh, yeah. Said, they make some lemon meringue pies here that are big as a chef's hat. Said, the meringue on them alone is that thick. And I thought to myself, that's not very thick for meringue that's comparable to a toque, T-O-K-U-E. But I went on along with it, and then he said, you know, I made a Valentine for my wife this year. Made it out of cardboard and wire, and you know, big cardboard heart and wire arrow, and the heart goes right through the middle of the arrow. And I thought, that's kind of an odd, well, you could put it that way, I guess, you know, it's kind of an odd way of putting it. But, and then he said, you know, my wife's a lot smarter than I am. And I said, oh, he said, no, she's a lot smarter. We went to high school together, and she was a hoo-hoo. And I said, hoo-hoo? And he said, yeah, you know, they put that big book out, Hoo-Hoos in American Colleges, High School. So I was riding through Pennsylvania with a man whose dyslexia extended as far as pie. I never imagined that. Also, as I say, I wrote a lot of sports. And I wrote a story once with Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain, and this whole story turns on a very short word. The word "thee," in fact. The word "thee" is an interesting word in that, you know, I talked about Scrabble errors before, or Scrabble changes, where they couldn't tell the M from the N because of the I, so they changed the I to an O, even though it's pronounced I. This is a kind of Scrabble story, and it has to do with the word "thee," which I notice more and more when I type it. I never noticed this before, but I noticed that the word "thee" had become TEH in some quarters. And if you look up, there's an online dictionary called urbandictionary.com. If you have children and they use a word that you don't understand, and you're sure you want to understand it, you could look it up on urbandictionary.com. Urbandictionary.com is an interesting, it's not like Wikipedia. Wikipedia, you know, everybody's constantly rewriting everybody else. But nobody rewrites anything on urbandictionary.com. Anybody can write a definition of anything and put it on there. But then other people will vote up, one thumb up or thumb down on your definition, and other people will put in other definitions. And it's remarkable that the more coherent, at least, definitions tend to rise to the top. It's sort of heartening. But the word te is in there, T-E-H, because so many people have, in texting and emailing, so many people type it wrong that there's been this sort of collective decision to have a word te, T-E-H, which means a strong thee. It's like, are you the Vladimir Nabokov? Or just, you know, so people say, this is te rock and roll, you know. And so it's a whole new word. And then if you go on urbandictionary.com to THE, the number one definition is the most common misspelling of the word te. But anyway, this story about writing a story with Wilt Chamberlain is that I was working for Sports Illustrated, and I was engaged assigned to write a story, an as-told-to story with Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain is a tremendous person. 7 foot, he's officially 7'1" and weighed, I don't know, 285 pounds. But he was, in fact, bigger than that, I'm sure. Because I once turned to him in an elevator, and my eye level was at his elbow. There was just about as much of Wilt above me as there was below me. Just a huge man. But he had contracted with Sports Illustrated to write a story about his retiring from playing in the National Basketball Association. And it's going to be by Wilt Chamberlain as told to me. He had done one of these stories before. Of course, I don't know whether you remember this, but Wilt Chamberlain was also famous later on in his life for having written in his memoir that he had slept with 20,000 women. It seemed kind of staggering, and in fact, I know the editor of that memoir, and he called Wilt up and said, "Wilt, we're reading you've got your manuscript here, and we're trying to do the math, and it works out to an awful lot of. And Will said, "Well, yeah, there was this one big birthday party." At any rate, but that sort of thing didn't arise while we were writing the story. But he was great to work with. There have been athletes who are not all that, whose verbal skills have not been all that great. Pete Rose was once asked in an interview how many books he had read, and he thought about it and said, "I don't think I've ever read a book." And the interviewer said, "Pete, you've written two." But in this case, I wrote a story with Wilt, and he, some people can be quite eloquent orally, but then when you write down what they say, it doesn't really work on the page. But Wilt you'd write down what Wilt said, and it was grammatical and hung together and made sense, and I just had to fiddle with it a little bit, and it was fine. So I sent the story off, and he approved of the story. The text of the story was fine. But then we were in his house in Bel Air, California, waiting for the headlines to come back from Sports Illustrated. He was especially worried about the headline misrepresenting him. And we were in his house, which had considerably higher ceilings than this, and it was way up in the hills of Bel Air, sort of overlooking Los Angeles, and it had a decor feature, which I've never seen in anybody else's house, which was, and you may be appalled by this, I should have asked about the provenance of this decor feature, but I didn't. It was wolf muzzles, the fur from the muzzles of wolves, sewed together, and it made a kind of herringbone pattern, so, not the nose part, but the whole. And so there was wolf muzzle upholstery and wolf muzzle carpeting and everything, and so it added something to the atmosphere. And also there were these friends of his there who were not as big as he was, but were big enough to be his friends, and they were sort of pacing around, because they were not going to let me get away with taking advantage of Wilt, which Lord knows I did not want to do. But so there we were waiting for the headline to come back from the editor of Sports Illustrated. And in those days, we didn't have faxes and computers and things. There was a machine, though, that Hunter Thompson called a Mojo machine. This huge thing you could lug around with you, and you could hook it up with a telephone, and you could put a typed page into it, and it would slowly send it over the phone line. And we were waiting for such a page to come in from New York. And we were there, and the guys were pacing around, just waiting for me to try something. And finally, the page came in very slowly, and I pulled it out of the machine. And I looked at it, and I said, and there was two pages. One page was for the main headline. I handed it up to Wilt, and it said, quote, "My impact will be everlasting." And that was fine with him. He had said it, and it was commensurate with his stature. It was fine. So good. But then the second one came in, the subtitle, and I could see that was not going to go over, because what it said was, "A dominant force in basketball announces his retirement from the game." And I handed that up to Wilt, and he looked at it, and he said, "A dominant force." And I said, "Well, I think the operative words here are dominant and force, and certainly you were," because he was, an extremely strong person. There was a guy named Bob Lanier who was almost immovable because he was also huge, and also he had size 22 feet, which made him hard to budge. And Wilt once got mad at him and just picked him up by the hips and put him down, feet and all, and moved on to the basket. So he said, "A dominant?" And I said, "Well, you maybe wanted the dominant?" And he nodded. And his friends were walking around saying things like, "A dominant? Man, A dominant? The man was dominant. I don't know. Why do you say A dominant?" So, but I could see that there was a problem there, which was that "the" was going to make the headline too long. I didn't know what to do. So I called back to Sports Illustrated in New York. Unfortunately, it was 3 hours later there, of course, and the editor was not in his office. He was, but we had this great telephone operator named Muriel who could find people anywhere. And she knew how invaluable she was, so she didn't take any guff off of anybody. She, one time we had this really imperious French managing editor named André Laguerre, who once hung up his phone loudly, and immediately it rang again. And he picked it up, and it was Muriel. And she was saying, Andre, if everybody in the building whanged his receiver, I would have to have brain surgery. So he never whanged his receiver again. So Muriel, in fact, found this editor. Unfortunately, she found him in a bar called the Ho Ho, a Chinese restaurant bar, which had two virtues. One was that it was close to the Time and Life building where Sports Illustrated was then, and the other was that every fourth drink there was free, which meant, if you think about it, that it didn't hardly pay not to have 8. And the editor was into probably his 6th or 7th when I reached him, and he was saying things like, I said, I'm here with Wilt, and he's doesn't like the headline. He doesn't want to be a dominant. He wants to be the dominant. And the editor said, I don't know, it seemed to me dominant, a dominant, I don't know, a dominant. And I said, I'm here with Wilt. And the editor was saying, I don't know, it seemed to me. And the guy's friends were walking all around saying things like, the thing I don't see is you come into a man's home and call him a dominant, you know. And so I said, I couldn't get anything out of the editor. I said, well, you better just talk to him yourself. So I handed him the phone. Will took the phone and said, Will Chamberlain here. Yes. No, I understand what the word, that's not the point. I know what dominant means. I know very well what force means. I would know that. But, I know, I realize it's not a big, and gradually, not only was he seeming to have a conversation with this guy, Wilt was being mollified. And he handed me the phone back, and the line was dead, and I hung it up, and he looked down at me and said, who the hell is Muriel? So, I don't think there's anything arbitrary about that either. The language, when you're working with words, unknown forces pop up sometimes. So, anybody got any questions about what we have covered so far? I think all this is legal, so it shouldn't be. Anybody?
Just one.
Yeah.
If you had to do an unscientific estimate, what would you say is the percentage of non-arbitrary words?
Non-arbitrary words. I would say about 30%. I don't know where. Just doing the math there. No, I mean obviously there are abstract words like, but then there are abstract words like prestidigitation, which is not. Most of the real good Sonic words come from Germanic languages, from the Dutch or German or Scandinavian languages, and they have all. There's a great word in Dutch, lekker, which means sweet. Sweet is a nice word too, but lekker. If you hear Dutch people, we know some people up in the country who are from Holland, and they, you know, if something's really good, they say that's lekker, lekker soup, and I bet it has a lot to do with it's connected to lick and licorice and lecher probably too. But you know, it has this great kind of sound to it. You know, when I was in the Army many years ago. I was in the Army with a couple who had a little boy who couldn't speak yet, a little bitty kid, and he looked up at whenever he'd see a light bulb, he would look up and say, gickle. And that's about the only thing I remember from the Army was that kid saying gickle. You know, he hadn't been taught to say gickle, and I keep trying to find some etymological reason why that makes sense, but you know, it's close to sparkle, and the word light in our language comes from German Licht, so there is a kind of something there, but I don't know how to get at it. But there are lots of words that you know, once you start thinking of Sonic words, they tumble all around you. Like when you're talking about through there are all these THR words, throb, and how about thwart, unlike through. The word thwart, you start out like through, but the W jumps out and stops you, and then the T, thwart, you got a wart at the end. And the word throttle, you start out saying something like through, and you wind up in the back of your throat being very nearly throttle, which is, you know what a glottal stop is. You're back in a glottal stop is when your larynx clamps down, as in, no, you didn't, or I'm getting married in the morning. The glottal stop, and it's throttle almost gets to a glottal stop. Somebody else over here. Yeah.
Could you say something about the word ma or mama?
Oh, yeah, I meant to mention that's a primary sonic word, because the word, we are mammals, and that's our scientifically accurate species name, and that comes from mammary gland, because that's a distinguishing mark of mammals, and in any dictionary you look, you will see that the word mammary comes from mama, and that mama is baby talk. So the species we are, or class, or whatever it is, comes from baby talk, and then the word matter comes from the Latin version of that. Mater gives us matter. So the very physical nature of things also comes from baby talk. That's pretty impressive to me. That's certainly not arbitrary. And in almost every language, I've got a whole list of the vast majority of languages, the word for mother either starts with M or starts with a vowel and then M, like Oma or something. And to me, that branches out into all sorts of things like and you know, when you clamp your lips together, you are doing what infants do when they nurse. And you can imagine an infant seeing mama coming and going, for very good reasons. I even have a slightly crazier notion that the sound y, which so many words for yes, ya, either start with y, the y sound, or end in it, like we and see. And if you think about it, lots of people don't like to think about what goes on in their mouths, as I say, but that when you put your tongue up against the roof of your mouth, it's what you do when you suck on a nipple. That yeah. And it seems to me that quite a bit of language may have evolved from there. I wouldn't be surprised if the word me comes from there. People are embarrassed by the word me now. They will say, you know, Charles Manson and myself used to put on little skits in prison, you know, just because it sounds more elegant that way instead of, yeah.
The word arbitrary.
The word, exactly, I was going to do that too. The word arbitrary is not arbitrary in the sense that it comes from the word arbiter, which means a judge, somebody settling a dispute, and the word arbiter comes from the Latin ad biteri. Ad means to, and biteri means to go or to come. An arbiter was somebody who went somewhere to settle a dispute. So at its root, the word arbitrary is like go-to, or the word arbiter anyway, is like go-to guy or gopher, you know, G-O-F-E-R, somebody that goes for something. So that's not too arbitrary to me either. It's not, maybe it's not sonic-y, but it's historically comes from recognizable chunks. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Talking about mama, what about daddy?
Well, that's a question. I think children sometimes say daddy first, but and also papa. They're fun things to do with your mouth, and the old man lights up when you say them, I think is probably. And then you don't think about him anymore until he comes back around. I don't think you're going around saying, about daddy. Yeah.
Not really on topic, but I'd like to thank you for the good work of the Authors Guild with the Google books.
Oh, thank you.
And I wonder if you could talk about that a little?
Yeah. Well, let me just say first about the word Google. It goes back to, the word Google was coined, the original version of the word Google was coined by Milton Serrata, who was 9 years old. He was out walking with his uncle, a famous mathematician, and his uncle said to Milton, think of a word for the biggest possible number. And, you know, if it had been me and I was 9 years old, I think I would have said squigillion or something like that. But Milton was better than that. He came up with Google, Googol. And that became a word for I don't have the word for any number that's one tick past what shows up on your calculator. You know, the word that would throw you, that's a Google. And in fact, later on, the uncle and some colleagues invented Googleplex, because you could never, you know, they just couldn't stop. They had to make Googleplex, which is Google to the Google's power, I believe. But then when those two young men invented Google, Google, they called it that because they didn't know how to spell Google. They thought they were spelling this, they have admitted this, that they spelled it wrong. But of course it works better as a, you know, as a household word in this country to spell it Google. And it works really well. And the Authors Guild has, also, well, anyway, in my book, I go way off on Google. I find it in Mark Twain. There's a reference to buttermilk googling out of a jug, it seems to me. I'm the president of the Authors Guild, and we just ended 2.5 years of negotiations with Google because Google, we sued Google because Google had been scanning and copying all the books in the Stanford Library, the University of Michigan Library, including books that were in copyright. And we complained about that to them, and they said they thought it was fair use because they were only putting snippets up on their website of these books. But we said, what's a snippet? You know, snippet, your snippet, one man's snippet may be somebody else's big old chunk or something. And we didn't say you could do that. We own the copyright. So we sued them, and then the publishers joined in on the suit. And two and a half years later, once negotiation began, we have come out with this agreement, which by which Google is paying $125 million, which is nothing to Google, of course, but we weren't out to get rich. Authors very seldom make much money. But what we wanted to do was to set up a registry like ASCAP or BMI, I should say BMI in Nashville, that for authors' books, so that anytime anybody copies your book, you get a few dollars. And so it's this elaborate system. It took forever to thrash out because the libraries were in it, and the publishers are in it, and the authors are in it, and the authors don't get along with publishers anyway. So there were lots of negotiations. But it's set up now so that every author whose book has been illegally scanned gets $60, which for each book, which is nothing, but it's something. And we weren't out to punish Google, and we weren't out, you know, this is no time in American history to be greedy. So, but the main thing is, I wish, but it will set up the system whereby people can be compensated for their books being scanned, and then readers will have all the world's books in the world at their fingertips, you know, and you'll have to pay a little bit to, you can't download somebody's copyrighted book, but you can read it online. Google will, if you pay $1.29, $2.49, Google will keep online for you a copy of that book. And you can always go there and read it. And so the library, our library in Mill River, Massachusetts, has 11,186 books. I know that because I Googled it. And now it's going to have 11,000. It's going to be great because every library in the country is going to have a little, what do you call it, a little monitor where you can just for free read any book there is. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.